for the county. The entrance here, you'll walk in, be greeted by a desk where they can have announcements. There's a waiting area here with some chairs. It has a glass wall with a door. Again, this was the idea of if there's a group of kids at the pool and someone's coming to pick them up. If anyone's been to an indoor pool, when you walk in, it's going to be about 85 degrees and 50% humidity inside. So if you were coming in, even on a day like today, when it's a great spring day in Ely, but 65 degrees and the lower level humidity, if you walked into that natatorium dressed as you're dressed now, it's going to feel like you just walked into southern Florida, and it's going to be way too hot. It's much more comfortable to be able to stand here, make eye contact, say it's time to go, come meet me out. They can exit either through this door or through our locker rooms, which pass through. The locker rooms themselves, men's and women's, there'll be lockers for day use, where you can leave your clothes that are there, or whatever else you might have for recreation if you want to come before work, and be able to go out, swim, and then come back. Some of the buildings through here, there's a multi-purpose room. The meeting for this room, it's a small gathering space. Essentially, the idea behind this room is if there's a life-saving course, a merit badge course that might be taught, if there's a high school competition, the athletes need a place to be while they're not on an event. It is expressly kept small enough without food features so that it does not compete with anything else locally. We were told that the minute it starts to look like it competes with anything, it's too big and it doesn't work. So that's kept to a size. You can see there's about 5 tables that fit in there. And that is also is open with some glazing that looks into the lobby space. There's some storage room for some tables and chairs. There's a unisex bathroom, which we find becomes more and more important. If there is a couple that perhaps one of the couple needs assistance getting changed, we need to provide something. We'll have the ability to have a changing table there so that everybody can enjoy the pool and can swim. And then we'll have a janitor's closet, electrical room, and a fire riser room on that side of the pool. All the pool mechanical is kept up front, and the pumps, the chemicals, as close as we can make it so that the trucks don't have to drive somewhere crazy. We've designed it to accommodate a drop-off of every couple of weeks of chemical material, and we've tried to help source that so we set up the pool chemistry based on the water here, that they can get chemicals from a couple of locations at low cost, so that we keep the operating cost down on the pool. A couple of others, the elevation. This is the front, what you would see from off the highway. There's some glazing. The roof you can see arches slightly. There's a slight bow to that to shed snow off the back, so it's not shedding off the front of the building. There'll be some signage on the front. This sign right here, this was our idea and our placeholder. What we're doing with this is we're working with the high school students, and we're starting a competition at the high school, and we're going to ask the high school students to design it. And we'll put up some awards for it, and then we'll help a high school student bring their idea to the level that it needs to be to get the actual logo for what this aquatic center is going to have. The main entry, you can see here, it's a little bit dark. I apologize with the projector, but the feeling of this is it's kind of got a log cabin feeling with a heavy timber truss that's on there. Everything on the building is built to last. It's a 40-year, 50-year facility. It's metal panels over masonry. On the natatorium, it's wood framed. One of the important things that we had is we wanted to make sure also that we utilize local trades on the construction. And while this is part of what the contractor does, I know that sub-fairs were held, bids were received, and I know the bids were tabulated last Friday. And now the contractor is going through those bids, checking what was included in the bids to make sure that all the scope was included and that what we've asked for in the construction documents is going to be provided. And they'll be coming back in the next week and a half to the commission with a guaranteed maximum price on the pool. this is kind of a fun sheet that we're able to do based on the technology we use. Essentially, what we're doing here is we're showing a perspective as if I was in a hot air balloon down in the McDonald's parking lot, and what it might look like coming back to the pool. And then we step through, and I take a little piece of the building out each time until we get all the way back. You can see the multi-purpose room, a little bit of what that might be like, and some of those rooms. This looks down to the locker rooms. Again, this is the locker rooms in the lobby. And at the start, you can see how deep the children's pool is, and what some of that space is like inside. And then start to get the depth of the lap pool here until you get to the whole building. So we thought we'd provide this. It gives more of an idea for people that want to see what's it going to feel like inside, and what are those spaces designed to be like. So I think that's the sheets I brought to share, and this is essentially what we've heard through our meetings here, that was needed and desired here. And so if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes?
You talked about the children's pool and how deep it's going to be and stuff. How deep is the other pool going to be?
Okay, good question. I should have covered that.
And also, are there going to be any diving boards?
No diving boards. Yeah, it's deeper at the end, but diving boards present an insurance increase to the county. They're a lot funner, for cannonball competition, some other fun stuff. Yeah, but what we've done in the pool, we talked about the depth here. There's a line here, and what we've designed this larger pool for, you see this notch here? There's a walk down for the steps. There's a notch here that's a swim bench. So essentially it's about 2 feet deep. It's where swim class is going to be held. So the younger kids can stand on that bench as they're learning to swim with the trainer, mom or dad, out here. And this is all 4 feet deep.
What's the dimensions on that pool?
Yeah, it's 45 this way and 50 meters. So it's a 6-lane, or excuse me, 25 yard. It's the minimum you can have for high school competition. So it will be built to UHSAA standard, or the high school standard, I forget what the acronym is, but the high school competition standards that would be minimum. Not that there's a program here, but if you want to lure swim competitions here, it needs to be that size. So that's how we came to the minimum size. The intention with this 4-foot area is that if there's water aerobics, it's 4 feet area. If someone is rehabbing a knee and they don't want to swim, but they want to walk, 4 foot of pool is good resistance walking that they can go through in that area. There will also be a wheelchair lift on this side, which if someone is wheelchair bound, there's a lift there that will pick them and lift them into the water and ease them down. The kids' pool has an actual ADA down that will get you down, so that is walker or wheelchair accessible.
So how deep is the deepest end?
The deepest end is 9'6", I believe. That depth is the depth that is needed for life safety courses. You have to dive that deep to pick up the brick to be life safety certified. How many? One and a half.
When you mentioned about possibly competition, I don't see any area where people could actually watch a competition.
What we've set up in the pools we've designed before, you can purchase Tilton rolls that we sized it, that there would be a 3-foot walkway, and then the Tilton roll would be up against the wall. So you would have a walking aisle, and you'd have about a 4-foot bleacher you could sit in there.
But even if that was out some type of observatory where the parents can watch the kids while they're swimming.
You mean like a second level or a place that they weren't maybe in the glass or in the natatorium area? That's something that, yeah, probably could have contemplated because it is tough as a parent for swim meets because you're overdressed for the whole thing and while the kids are swimming.
Swim meets, if your kids are young and you don't swim and you want to watch them from the other side or whatever.
There is, the whole thing has glazing around it, and one of the additive alternates is a patio out here at Sun Deck that we had planned. That would be some doors out there that parents could sit. But when we got into the costs, that was something that we felt was probably push it over our guaranteed max cost. So we left it in as an alternate. If we find savings as we build it, we will add that in to get done.
So then what's the capacity that it actually will?
The capacity per the fire code, which is going to dictate that, I believe, is 454 souls. Chris probably knows exactly what that's about, what the number is.
Okay, I got one more question, unless anyone wants to go. See, I didn't even like. Just let me get up there and talk, I guess. I got another question. If you go back to the very first slide. To me, the parking area versus the facility, is there enough room? I mean, you said 454, that certainly doesn't look like more than enough.
No, and what we anticipated was we could park it, and we didn't want a big parking lot that was never used, to pay for it that was never used. So because the zoning ordinance actually allowed much less than this, we built it up to a space of what we anticipated would be big enough to handle big pushes for what we see in the foreseeable future of, you know, a big swim day or, you know, 4th of July swims or things like that that would handle that load. But the parcel does include all this. So the anticipation was that the parking could be expanded in the future and if any future facilities needed to be out there. Right, right. Or push the skate park. I hate to move stuff, but that's something that could be contemplated.
How many of the 25-yard lanes are there?
6.
And are there jump platforms for competition?
There will be starting platforms and they'll be all slotted. They'll be provided in the back.
Where are the lifeguards located?
Okay, lifeguard stations is going to depend on loading, on pool loading, on how many will be there. There's a lifeguard station here that has glazing that looks out because a lifeguard, if they're there, they're never really on break. So even when they're having a snack, they need to have eyes on the pool. And that's directly adjacent to the manager's office and that front desk. So lifeguard station is here, first aid, there'll be a bench in the back for first aid station. And then lifeguards, depending on how many students or swimmers or whoever's there, would just be positioned. And we'll have portable deck chairs or the lifeguard stands that will be placed around the pool. Whatever.
How many employees is it going to take to control all this?
Again, that's going to depend, and what we've said all along is we've provided some operating numbers. And it depends on how many people you get in there. If you've got, say on a given morning from 5 to 8 a.m., you know that you expect 20 swimmers are there consistently. You can get away with having one guard and one front desk person for those 20 swimmers. And that's your staff for that time. You could reduce it, you really couldn't reduce it down more than that because they would have to switch with one being on break, checking people in while the other one was out being a guard. That would be your minimum. If it gets busy, you could have as many as 5 or 6 guards on deck. You'd want 3 there on rotations, and then you'd have a manager there. So I guess the max should be 9, 10 people on a hop in summer afternoon. Or Thanksgiving, I don't know when the big swim season will be.
Have you got with DOT and spoke with them about the kids crossing the highway all summer long and the safety of them crossing the highway?
Yeah, that's been one of the discussions that came up, and that's actually why we eliminated the road I talked about. They wanted a lighted crosswalk at that location, which to us didn't make sense because the sidewalk's on our side of the street. So our thought was, I know they all walk to McDonald's and we're cutting off the route for lunch. They'll kind of have to walk through our parking lot, but that has been part of the discussions and was one of the reasons we eliminated that roadway.
So if you provided operating costs, that means the county provided the hours for doing it at the facility?
We've given them operating costs based on it being open. I think we said from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day but Christmas and New Year's or something like that. That's what our basis was. I don't think that makes sense to be open that long, but I think you've got to find your way with what the demand is. And to me, I don't know if people have intention right now of going to swim on your lunch break, maybe you do, and maybe lunch break will be a big time, but the pools that we design and build around the state, generally what we see is there's a 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. crew, then it slows down and people start getting off work, kids start getting out of school, and 3 to 8 p.m. is really going. So why heat the building, why operate the pool, why keep somebody there from 10 to 3? But those are things that definitely can look at the operations.
But as far as operating costs, don't you always have to be heating water, running the filters? Even if you're not having anybody swim, even if there are no kids in the kiddie pool, some
Right.
equipment is running all the time.
Yeah, you're going to constantly, it'll cycle depending on how dirty the water is. So the pool is set up to determine what the bather load is, and that's what's going to drive the turnover in the water. Once it's heated, yeah, you're always going to be running a maintenance heat load on it. Because no one wants to walk into the pool at 5 in the morning and have it be 54 degrees and the water cold, right? We want it ready to go. So yeah, that will be, but the front end certainly doesn't have to be operating 24 hours a day. The lights don't have to be on, that type of stuff doesn't have to happen.
Just a follow-up on that, maybe for the commissioners. What provisions have been made for the operating costs to keep that funded, as well as long-term maintenance? I mean, sooner or later, your carpet needs to be replaced, your paint needs to be redone, your tile needs to be regrouted.
There is a tax in place right now that is,
This is Elizabeth Francis. Elizabeth Francis is the county's finance director. And also mentioned that we've had staff. We had come of the commissioners go to the 4 different other
Right.
schools.
okay. Okay, so we are looking at the operational costs. There is a tax in place right now to go ahead and provide for the operations of the aquatic center. As Eric indicated, we're going to try and find our way. Some of our county commissioners, before this project actually got underway, went out and visited, I believe, a pool in Fernley, in Eureka, in Fallon, and was there one more?
Also, right?
No, just the 3? Okay, so in those 3 locations, and we've looked at their different programs, their different hours of operation, and like Eric indicated, during the school year, it doesn't make sense to have it open when there's no one there. Plus, the school is going to be having PE classes. Part of what happened to make this project go is that the school donated some land. And so in exchange, they'll be utilizing the pool for PE classes, which is great. We're going to educate the kids here in White Pine County how to swim, and that's a really important thing for them to know. So the operation should be ongoing, provided by the tax. That's in place. And the hours of operations will be scaled up and down depending on revenues. We'll also charge fees for different services. Just as a comparative looking, they have splash parties in some of the different county pools that we looked at. They have fees for swimming classes. They have different programs that they run, and they charge fees. So there'll be some fees for services. And so that's where we're looking to find the revenues in order to go ahead and provide the continued operating of the pool. The tax that it was in place to go ahead and provide for the construction is done, but the operations will continue.
But the county does realize that if nobody shows up, there's still a fairly significant cost to keeping the building viable.
Correct, yes.
And they're prepared to pay.
Well, I think in any instance, by making a commitment to open the pool, the county is accepting responsibility to go ahead and provide for that facility.
Lori,
Yes.
can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
From experience, I worked at the pool when I was a senior in high school, many years ago. Participation during the winter time, if you got 5 people to show up at that pool, you were lucky. Maintenance on it, I'm not saying it about the county now, but buildings that were built, that pool was never very well maintained. It didn't last as long as it should have. It was filthy when I worked there. So I have a concern, as we asked her, about maintaining it, keeping it clean. And the people really have got to be committed. They've cried for so long to get this. They better use it. Because it's like the airport. Everybody wants that airplane coming in, but nobody's using it. And when it's gone, oh gee. So that's my concern with it. We need it. We need it for the kids. But the people in White Pine County have to be behind it.
You're absolutely right, and I thank you for bringing that up, Cheryl. The one thing that I was going to comment when I stepped up to this podium just then was to let you know that in 2010, 11, I think was when we did the community assessment, and there was, I think 19 meetings within 3 days that we had meetings as to what does your community, what do you see that this community needs? What would you like to see happen? I mean, there was a range of questions that was asked, and there was a team that came in and asked everybody. They talked to seniors, they talked to the students. They went to the high schools. They went out to the outlying areas. They just about hit every possible group. And number one that this community said over and over and over again was that they wanted a swimming pool for the kids. This is the first step of that. When I first came here, I would have loved to have seen a little Boys and Girls Club, YMCA on the smaller scale that would fit our community. This is the start of that. As Eric explained earlier, the way this is set up is it's been engineered so that we can add to it if that is needed, whether it's basketball courts, tennis courts, jogging laps, just whatever, the extra parking. So I just want to reaffirm that this came about because of the cry out from you. So that's why I say I am glad to see you here and interested, and we will take your questions, and as we move along, we will keep those in mind. So I'm sorry, I had to get up on the pulpit here and do a little speech, because I went to a lot of those meetings. Yes?
Is there any approximate cost that students would pay to come in and go in there?
That's correct. We're like we say, we're looking at the different services that we'll provide and the different opportunities that we'll afford, and then the fee schedules will be based on what those programs will be. And then we're looking to the other county pools that the commissioners toured in order to try and find a comparable fee schedule.
Elizabeth, what is the operating cash generating on an annual basis so far?
Currently, that's coming in between $450,000 and $500,000.
What were the projected operating costs?
I'm going off of memory here. The biggest one was staff. I think our total operating cost for hard goods for operation and anticipated power, 120, 140, I want to say, a year, operating every day with the schedule I mentioned. The other part was how much you pay in salaries, and that was the big load. I think that pushed us up to 386. I think 386. That's sticking in my head, that number for operating. I apologize. We submitted it once upon a time, but it was less than that, 400.
Sales tax revenue will cover the operating costs, so we're comfortable with that?
That's what we came to in our previous, yeah.
I'm
I have
sorry.
a pretty firm recall on that. I was sitting as a member of the audience.
Mike?
He needs a mic.
My recall was that you provided written estimates of $385,000. And we're asked, how did it get down to $385,000? He said, well, we adjusted out the aquatic director because while we think that's a very valuable asset, it's not an absolute necessity, so we eliminated that position. So we would hope that you'd ultimately be able to have it. And that we surveyed, I thought it was 5, we being you, 5 pools of similar size in geography or similar size in meteorology,
Yeah, we call it the Northern Fallon Fernley pools.
And now we get down to where the tire hits the road. My recall was that it was something like, those others ran just under or just over $500,000 to upwards of just short of $900,000. So you were asked, well, how did you get to 385? If the bottom of the window of the 5 pools it had is right around 500,000. And you said we eliminated the aquatic director position. It was in our budget, and we believe that because this is absolute state of the art for filtering, for heating, lighting, and because you, the county, will be extraordinarily cost conscious about this, manage your personnel and shut down part of the pool in the morning, stuff like that, like we're talking about tonight, that you'll be able to do it at 385. But then most memorably, and I think most importantly, we said, however, I have to tell you, I am a pool architect, not a pool management person. So I cannot stand by these figures. I'm telling you what we found in our research and what we think will happen to you, but you might want to inquire further. Well, that left me concerned, because as everyone knows, I'm really anxious to have this pool or have a pool, but I'm really concerned that that we can continue to operate it over the long term.
Sure.
And we're budgeting sales revenues at the sales revenue moment on the 2 highest years, 2012, 2013, highest tax revenue White Pine County's ever had, at least in my lifetime. I don't know what it was like in the 1930s. And we're looking at the possibility well, we're looking at the certainty of eventual tax reduction, but the possibility of it in as early as 3 to 5 years. So I discussed that with you before. We may want to get into that later, but that was the shortfall I was concerned about, that 385. And if we'd gone back, if anyone had gone back, what made up that 385? I didn't have the attachment tax rate. That was just a contribution. Do those figures sound like what you were?
Yeah, and let me clarify one thing that all the pools we surveyed, I think the most recent pool was 20 years old. So even if we were to design a base building today per code, you'd be about 23% more efficient than those buildings. We designed the building above and beyond that, and so we're anticipating operating costs about 30 to 32% bump. And my statement about the pool manager, that goes back to how long are you open? What makes sense to be open and to staff it. So.
And I think that the county understands that they are going to have a sharp pencil and make this work, and that is the goal.
Okay, I want to pass it here.
And Mr. Costa, we also have another section after this, and it's a town hall so that the community can have.
Laura, the questions that were directed to you were about costs, and you told us about how the community study indicated you wanted a pool. That's important.
But I thought that was also for the
numbers.
finance director too.
I want to tell you, Eric, I looked at the drawings in some detail twice now, and I don't think Laura's had the chance to do that. All the lighting, all the LED lighting has been eliminated to reduce construction costs, but escalating operating costs. So I don't believe that the utility portion of the hopefully true, probably optimistic 385 has even as much a chance of coming out now because we're going into higher cost utilities. So I believe in my CPA heart of hearts, there is no way we're going to run this thing at 385. I think, and this is just a guess, and I'd love to be proved wrong, that it's going to be run at something like 550 or 600 a year if we run it, 7-day-a-week operation most weeks. So if that's a realistic possibility, we need to budget for that. I don't want to have to answer to you people in 3.5 years from now and tell them why a county that already has maximum property tax rate, maximum gasoline tax rate, and maximum sales tax rate can't operate that pool. So my concern is this, and we'll get into alternative sizes.
Yeah.
And Mr. Coster, it is still the county's job with the tax coming in at between 400,000 and 500,000, then we will see to it that this works. That is my goal and always had been the goal of this